is convening by telephone conference, video conference via Zoom, Facebook Live, and the Lunenburg Access channel as posted on the town's website identifying how the public may join. You can find a link to the Zoom meeting if you navigate to the town calendar and locate the Finance Committee link in today's date. As this meeting is being conducted remotely, some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you, and take care not to share screen on your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Lastly, any votes taken during this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Further, for those members of the public making public comment, please be sure to state your name and address prior to commenting. And if necessary, a written public comment can be emailed to me at mwalton@lunenburgonline.com. So I think we can hop right into it. The first agenda item was for minutes, but we're going to skip over that. So the next is the sewer budget. Dave, are we able to hear you yet?
Yes, how's that? Is that any better?
Yeah, that's great. Perfect. So right. Terry, I think we have some presentation materials to put up.
Okay. Let me just get used to this format that we got going on. I'd like to also introduce Bob, who's with me. We're doing a presentation together. Bob, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, and thank you, Bob. Going. Okay, first page on our presentation. Okay, Bob.
Okay, just to ask, I'm going to assume that this is the correct presentation page that I'm supposed to be showing.
Yes.
And that you can.
Yeah, can you hold on 1 second, Betty? Can you grab me my phone charger? I'm using the phone. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. Bob, can you switch the page?
Terry is controlling the page, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Before we start the presentation, I just want to make a comment that I want to personally thank all of you. I know a lot of you on the committee, and I just want to thank you with everything going on, what you and other boards are doing in town to preserve our way of life. And without your support and help, it would be a different out there, guys. So again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys very much for what you're doing. So tonight's presentation, I'd like to start off with the current sewer team. All the commissioners, my name is Dave McDonald. I am chairman of the commission. We have John Reynolds, he's our vice chair. We have Brett Ramson, who just came on. He's a clerk. We have Carl Luck, who's been here from day one. And excuse me 1 second, I'm just powering it up. Sorry about that. And we have Mike Knoll. The staff that we have is the DPW director, sewer division, Jack Rodigans. Our business manager, as you know, is Barbara LaFerbe. And the person who takes our minutes is Jane Ranley. Right now, we want to thank all the current members are currently serving, and those who have recently left. That would be Joan Pease, who is the chair, Ryan Stober, and Joe Anderson. We also want to thank Carl Luck, who made a commitment to stay with the commission until at least the town election. He has served on the sewer commission since 2006. He provided a lot of guidance and experience. And also at this point, I want to wish him and his wife well, because I know his wife is leaving the Board of Selectmen. So again, our thanks to those two. The town sewer is the sewer commission was established in 2006. It operates as a sewer enterprise fund. The town has 16 miles of gravity sanitary lines, 3.9 miles of forced mains, 2.3 of low pressure, and it has 7 lift stations and 3 pump stations. We currently have 885 properties connected to the town sewer. The town has contracts with various vendors to make our system more effective, including an interim operation and maintenance company contractor, Chad Emery, LLC, and they keep looking out for our pump stations and making sure that they're functioning properly. Woodward and Karen, they're studying our I&I. You're going to hear that a little bit during tonight, which is for inflow infiltration. And flow assessment, they maintain our flow meters, monitoring the flow data that goes between Pittsburgh and Leominster. And again, we're going to be hearing a little bit more about that as well. And I missed the last line.
Ray Pierce. There we go.
Okay. We'd also like to thank Race Pierce for the maintenance plan to establish standard operating procedures for the sewer division. Again, we want to thank all our partners in the business. We have some challenges facing us as a commission this year. The operation and the maintenance of the Lunenburg wastewater collection pump stations. We have an interim company, which we just talked about, our maintenance contractor, committed to work through the pump station until June 30th. And again, that's Mr. Emery. Hold on one second. Emery. The commission also made up a new RFP, and we handed it over to Heather, and we want to thank Jack and Bob for their input. But that's going out to look for a new contractor, which hopefully will commence July 1st. If for some reason it doesn't commence July 1st, we do have a backup contractor that will keep on working the system for us. The commission is currently working on an RFP for our pump generator maintenance as well. This was done by one company. The commission decided to separate it and go into other avenues and get better opportunities and better pricing. Next page. Challenges we have is from Leominster Municipal, an IMA, intermunicipal agreement, and that's the billing practices implementation. And these were done back in 1999. But in 1999, it was a different world than it is today or even last year. But we'd like to start off by, for the 2021 budget, we started paying our debt services to Leominster. FY21 amount this year is $30,000, and we'll describe that as we go through the numbers. And I know we only have a half hour to do it. The next thing would be the changeover from flow meter reading basis to water uses. For example, right now our meters are being, our bills from Leominster is being done by our water usage in town. In the IMA that was in there, Leominster always had the right to go back to the flow metering, which was very tough for us to handle. That's where we are right now. The estimated effect in this changeover could range up to $200,000 a year. The commission has been dedicated to reducing the inflow infiltration for years, but we did hire Woodward and Curran in late September to study the I&I issue to determine what actions we can do to take better control as it affects the flow metering to Leominster. That report should be available within the next month. Mr. Luck is in charge of looking at that for us, and he's doing a good job, so hopefully within a month we'll have a report. Flow assessment is also aware of the changing and working with Jack and Bob to establish accuracy of the flow data going through the meters, Fitchburg and Leominster. We need those meters to be running at top efficiency. And again, that's almost how that's how we're going to get billed from Fitchburg and Leominster. The rate increase, by looking at all these numbers, and again, we're going to go over it, the commission is recommending putting forward a step rate increase program. Now, the last increase was in 4/1/13, 7 years ago. And it's very hard for a company to survive without an increase with everything going on around us. And for an example of that, the rate increase in Fitchburg and Leominster has been going up. Right now, Leominster, which is part of the plan for Leominster and Fitchburg, is that their rates are going to go up 4% this year for fiscal year 2021. In Fitchburg, they have planned an increase of 8% each year through the year 2022. The commission understands the current economic situation and plans to implement, hold on a second, can't read that word because it's behind all the pictures.
In steps.
Thank you. Instead of a rate increase on one lump sum, the commission worked diligently to try to come up with a fair way to not only satisfy our customers, but also to take a look at the current situation. So how is this rate increase going to work? Well, our first step is effective 7/1/20 for fiscal year 2021 budget. We plan an increase of 10%. This rate will go from, and I'm just giving you an example here, but 10% is 10%. But the rate will go from $115 per 1,000 cubic feet to $126.50 per 1,000 cubic feet. The minimum charge from $97.20 will go to $107 per quarter. For example, if you're currently billed at a minimum charge of $97 a quarter, your increase will be $107 per quarter, which is $40 a year. The easiest way to figure out how it's going to impact you at home would be to take your current bill and just add 10% to it. We know that there's more, we will know more in November at the special town meeting of projections, and we'll be revisiting revisiting, sorry. I knew one was we'll have a new O&M contractor will be in place, and the cost from Leominster based on flow meeting will be known. And I'm not saying they're not known now, but we want to go through really one quarter to see exactly how it's going to be the bottom line. So other 2021 operation budget facts. In 2021, the budget numbers do not include the Leominster flow metering charge increase. Lunenburg and Leominster are still assessing the situation. For 4 years, the commission had been putting a 3% of revenues away in capitalized reserve stabilization fund to cover unexpected large ticket repairs and replacements. 2021, the budget requires transfers from retained earnings of $125,650 to fund the operation budget. Surplus of $67,931 surplus, less $193,581 betterment. Okay. Next one. What I'm going to do is, before we go into the budget, which I'm going to give it to Bob, does anyone have any questions or anything right now? And I'm willing to take your guys' questions.
I do. Michelle, can I go ahead?
Yeah, I was looking for your hand.
Okay. Sorry, I'm raising the wrong hand.
At least I can see you.
So at a high level, you had mentioned that $200,000 for additional flow because of the I&I issue. And I understand that at a very high level. But then you said that is not accounted for in this budget?
Not in this budget, because I don't want to put something in and say that we have actuals, and this is not actual. It's what we feel it's going to be. I mean, we have a pretty good perception of it, but also to ask for a larger increase at its time. And again, I know most of the people on the commission run just not right. This is not the right time to ask for a huge increase. So what we plan on doing is, once we found out for sure what the difference is between the actual metering versus what we've been doing, billable water, I think we'll have a sense of it. And one thing we don't want to do is overcharge anybody. But we have to look at it as a business. And the only way to do that is do something now. So if we have to, we like to revisit it in November. I guess there's a special town meeting, and update it at that point. But we want to be fair. I mean, I think that's the bottom line. There's no way this commission wants to go to somebody and say, hey, you're going to go up 40%, unless we really know. But the other situation that we look at is that the expenses have always been running as a business. So if we haven't got an increase for 7 years, and just the rates going to Fitchburg and Leominster kept going up, sooner or later it's going to break. And right now, it kind of broke the bank a little bit. But you got good people working on it. And I just want to make it clear, I take sole responsibility for this budget. I know a lot of people put a lot of effort into it, but we're trying to do it correctly. And I just want to know that if someone has a problem with this budget, or a homeowner has a problem, please call us. We're not evil. We're here to help as well. But I'll take full responsibility for the budget.
I appreciate that. One additional question, which I think I know the answer to, which is a good way to ask a question, I suppose. This infrastructure is not all that old. I think it was put in the 2000 to 2003 timeframe.
Yes, correct.
Do we have is there any recourse on this issue? Like, were there any bonds taken that kind of guaranteed this work for a period of time?
At the time, there was a defect in the system, and I think Mr. Luck may be on the phone, but I'll tell you from what I know from the history, when the system was put in, we have a reserve fund. That reserve fund was because of shoddy work that was done at the time. And I think you're right. So it was done back in 2003, 2006 range, and it kept expanding. In fact, we moved to town, I think I want to say in 2002, the roads were all ripped up everywhere.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. Now, was it done correctly back then? I don't know. I mean, obviously we're getting an I&I problem, and it shouldn't have been an I&I problem, but this town's kind of unique. And this commission, and I was on a commission back in 2013 for 5 years, and we did a lot of research in trying to problem. I mean, it's not just we hired this company today. We've been doing smoke testing. We've been doing different things to find out where this I&I is coming, and we did find a lot, but we still got to do it. And I guess the only way we can really look at it is, like I said, we hired this company to look at it. But at the end of the day, I just want to let you know that we may never find the exact problem. We have ideas, we have thoughts, but we really don't know. Did I lose my picture, guys, or am I still with you?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. But if we could find the I&I problem, that would reduce at least some of the costs that's going to Leominster. But we got to talk to Leominster. I know Mr. Luck went out to Leominster and he talked to the sewer director. But I think we just want an opportunity to sit down with them and say, this is how it affects our numbers. They're our partners. They're not enemies. They're our business partners. And so is Fitchburg. And Fitchburg, as you can see, is going through a lot with their sewer by doing the separation between stormwater and actual sewer. So this is a business that you have to keep track of what's going on. You have to be vigilant as far as the prices. We have to be respective of what we have for our vendors, but we also, I'm looking forward to hiring a new vendor and get those costs under control. This is all just like anyone who runs a business. It's $1 million a year business, and it should be run like one. And I'm not saying it's not, but let's look at it and see what we can do to protect not only our equipment, we have a lot of money out there on pump stations, but to protect our customers as well. That's our number one goal. And I hope it shows what we've been doing on the budget.
Thank you.
But that's the question. I appreciate it.
All right, Dave, I
Anything
see
else?
your hand.
Yep, Dave Passios. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Dave.
Two comments or questions. First of all, more or less a comment. The first quarter, assuming that you get into metering the flow into Leominster and Fitchburg in the first quarter, there's going to be a discrepancy there, obviously, because you're working off of charging the residents via their water meters, and if you go to a flow into Fitchburg and Leominster, those meters are not going to take into account the revenue you're getting from irrigation water that residents are paying for, not only through the water department, but into the sewer also, if they do not have an irrigation meter. And the revenues from your irrigation meter program more than cover the loss from the other direction. So first quarter skewed, I think, quite a bit by irrigation water both ways. Secondly, what's the process going to be for final approval and implementation of the increase for 2021? Is there going to be a public hearing process, or is it just going to be a vote of the commission and it's going to happen?
Okay, let's go with the first question first. Barb, you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so right now, Dave, as far as the water, Barbara, how is Fitchburg billing us? They're billing us by meters, is that correct?
Yes. And irrigation should not enter into anything. That irrigation by its own, essence is what does not go down into the pipes. It goes onto the ground. So that should not be a part of the flows that go into the flow meters.
Okay, I understand that part of it, but your revenues are escalated by the fact that you are collecting revenue for water that's not going into the system.
We reduce the intent of the irrigation meter is to take the billing usage, the water usage, reduce it by the amount in the irrigation system.
Okay,
So
well,
in my revenues,
yep.
if you're looking at the screen.
Right. We won't debate this tonight, but in effect, as I said in my previous comments in regards to this matter, the annual fees and all of the costs involved in putting an irrigation meter in and maintaining it outweigh any savings to the end consumer. So there's a revenue stream that's been developed there for the Sewer Commission, and on the other side, where you don't have an irrigation meter, the water's going through and you're getting billed for it both by the Water Department and by the Sewer Commission. I'm not trying to get into a big back and forth about this tonight. I'm just making more or less a public comment.
Well, that's an accurate public comment. I mean, it is what it is. It's right there in front of you. So you're right. Okay. Any other question?
Jay, I think you were trying to raise your hand.
Yes.
Hey, Jay.
Hi, David. What's the issue with the operation and maintenance contract? What happened to small water systems? I thought we had 3-year contracts for operation and maintenance.
We did. Small water decided to move on to better pastures. So they terminated their agreement and we accepted it, and we're hiring other people. Small water was good, but they decided to move on. It was their choice, Jay.
All right, so you're going out to bid now for a new contractor?
We have a temporary contractor, which we can do, and to finish off the SWS contract, which expires in another month or so, I think. We got a replacement for that time. And yeah, we changed the RFP. In fact, not to say anything, but Jay, you helped us on that RFP, the first one.
Yeah.
And we worked into it. This one, we took care of a lot of the bugs. I think we made a nice product. I think you guys, if you want to see it, you can call Barbara and get a copy of it, or you can ask town manager. But I think it's much better than what we did first time too. So we're excited. I think our prices, and if you look at some of the budgets, we did put some money in there because we're not sure, and we want to make sure we're sure. So I think we're going to see more of a saving once everything falls into place. The only thing that we had a problem with was COVID-19. Everything happened at the wrong time. It's just been one thing after another. But again, I have to say thank you to the commission and to the people who work in the fields for making this happen. So we got a business still going, and we're still servicing our customers. But thank you, Jay.
Are you doing, is it the RFP going out as another 3-year contract?
Yes.
One year renewable.
1 year renewal, though. Just like
Yeah, okay. And is there are you looking at a separate contractor for the generator maintenance?
that's going to go off our RFP too. And we're working on that. That's not really a major problem right now because we just had the generators looked at, but we want to make sure that we don't want to put all the eggs in one basket, and that's not the right thing to do with business. The more people we can bring in, the more bodies you have, the better efficiency we'll have for the system, and it's the right thing to do business-wise. So we can have a separate for generators. It'll save us money in the long run because we don't have to have another company doing mock-ups like our previous customer.
What did how far along did you get with the SCADA system? Have you added that to any more of the generators or
Jay,
pumping stations?
No, we haven't, but I can tell you that that's something that we have to look at. I've only been on the commission since late September, and so it hasn't really been effective. And then we had 2 members leave. So as you can see, we have a board now, and we're excited to get going after town elections.
How many stations are on SCADA?
I think it was just that one that we did.
Just one?
Is that right, Barb?
Yes.
I thought you had started a second one.
No?
We looked into it with multiple vendors, and at the time, the commission had decided that we'd wait.
Okay.
We do have things planned for, in fact, Jay, we got an opening. I don't want to leave you from the financing, but if anyone's out there that's like to join the commission, please give us a call. I'm looking forward to after all this is over. I think we're making up some new policies and really letting the DPW do their job, run the system. But thank you, Jay.
Okay.
Hi, Dave. I see your hand up.
Yeah, just asking if I could get an answer to the other question that I posed, and that was the implementation of the increase as to what the mechanism is going to be for that.
I can't hear you, Dave. Can you do that one more time?
Not sure. Anybody else hear me?
Yeah, I
And you were
got you.
cutting in and out.
Okay. Yeah, the internet's a little bit unstable this evening. I'm just wondering if I get an answer to the other question in my comments earlier, and that is the mechanism for implementation of the increase for 2021.
That would be a 10% increase, and right now I know the commission's going to do it. And Heather, maybe you can help us with that. The last time we did an increase, we didn't go to town meeting and ask for it. We just did it as a business. But Heather, do you have a recommendation? Is Heather still there?
Oh, Heather, you muted.
I would have to look into it further to see if there's any requirement, but I would say something you'd at least want to send out notification well in advance.
I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that then. Yes, we plan on sending out notification after we finish our presentation with you all here tonight. And I've been watching Ozark, so if I say you all a lot, it's I've been watching Ozark. We plan on notifying our customers, actually, yes. As far as final approval, Dave, what do you think? Should we do it at town meeting and get approval? Because we're talking 800 businesses and homeowners that have a bill. And I don't think we ever went to the town and asked for it because it's a business.
No, my thought process goes back to anytime you set policy, such as like the procedure you went through for the water meters, and that was that, in your policy, you are required 2 public hearings for that transition. I'm not sure what's in your policies for the increases in rates, whether there is or isn't anything, but just like to make sure that you follow a policy if there is one, and the notification is going to be imperative, and you guys have already covered that.
It's a very good question, Dave, but again, we're trying to get this budget done on short notice, and we do plan on doing everything by the book. So, I appreciate your concern, but I can trust you again. It will be done correctly. It's just that's our next step. We want to get this presentation with you and get your thoughts. And I think this is a pretty good plan that we got going forward. But now's the time, and I guess I'm asking you, with your experience finances, what do you guys think? If someone can come up with a magic wand, I'll be more than happy to listen to you. But we want to do the right thing, and I think this is it.
I think my underlying reason for asking these questions is that I want to see the actual numbers as to how this affects the bottom line of the sewer commission. I'm not so sure that the present rates are bankrupting you, but I don't know for sure without a comparison to what you're anticipating for increased expenses.
You know what, Dave, I'm glad you said that, because it's exactly what we want to do. We want to do it smartly and do it right. And the worst, hey, we need a 45% increase. Well, that's wrong. We want to do it. We want to do it correctly. And the only way to do it correctly is that we know we're having a shortfall because the business hasn't been an increase for 7 years. I think the best way to do it is put the 10% in now. And in fact, just to let you know, the last time there was an increase, it was Mike Knowlton and I on the commission who pushed for a 20% increase back in 2013. So it seems like we're the evil ones here, but business has to survive. And I think a 10% increase now is more than justified, but you're absolutely right. That's why we want to look at everything once it settles down, once we get a new contractor on board, once we finalize everything with Leominster. And as Mr. Luck will tell you, it probably already is finalized. But Barb, I think this quarter, didn't they ask for our billing, the water bills?
Yes, they did. So it's imminent.
I think Leominster is sitting back and saying, hey, we're going to work with you, but we do have to have that meeting. It's just that, there are a lot of other important things on the mayor's mind and Leominster's mind beside us right now, which is understandable.
As I said before, I'm just concerned because, and I haven't seen the numbers long enough or had any history to digest to show me that your bottom line has been deteriorating over, say, the past 5 years. If it has, okay, that justifies an increase. Just because we haven't had an increase in a number of years doesn't necessarily tell me what the bottom line number, how the bottom line number has been affected. And that would give me the justification to say, yeah, I agree with you or disagree with you.
Okay.
That's all.
Like in any business, Dave, when you have something that stays the same and your expenses keep going up, it's got to go up somewhere. It's the bottom line right now. If Leominster goes ahead and charges the I&I, yeah, we're going to have a shortfall. If they don't, if we can manage it, that's a big chunk we can save.
Dave, are you saying a shortfall from where you are today or a shortfall as in a deficit?
2020.
That's the difference.
2021.
Right, 2021. But if you didn't get an increase, does it create a deficit or does it just lower your bottom line? That's what I'm trying to get to.
Why don't we finish the numbers and then you can probably answer your own question. How's that?
Sure, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more hands. I think we're okay to go on.
I do have one more just procedural question. I understand that I did not get a clear answer from Dave's question about the mechanism for raising rates. And if a budget approved at town meeting assumes revenue that are above the current run rate, then, that combined with a commissioner vote, is that sufficient, or are additional communication required? And that's still not clear to me.
Yeah, no, Peter, it is with me too. And Bob, do you remember how we did it back in 2013? And again, we're going to find out. This is just
Right. It has always been by vote of the commission. It is in the charter that the commission is responsible for the sewer rates. So it has always been a decision of the commission. The budget goes before FinCom and town meeting, but the rate usually has been decided by the commission in a meeting.
Okay, thank you.
By vote.
I just want to ask one quick question on the budget that you're going to present tonight. Would the increase be reflected in the user charges? Is that where we would see it?
Yes, if you back up one page, Terry, if you don't mind. I did. The user charges, that 1,000,001 includes the quarterly billings, including the rate increase. The user charges without the rate increase was basically 908,000. And then the 9080 added for the rate. And then it's just 2,750 added for irrigation fees. So that is all included in the user charge line.
Okay.
Right, and then basically, I don't see a place to raise my hand. I'm sorry to interrupt, but all I wanted to basically just go back to the question of how the user fee rates have nothing to do with what's going to happen at town meeting. Town meeting is going to vote on the budget itself, and our recommendation is going to be based on whether or not the revenues will support the expenditures that they're going to identify. So I think basically if we get through the presentation of what those expenditures are and how they anticipate meeting them, that will probably address some of the questions that are coming up.
Thank you, Terry. That's exactly right. Okay.
All right, so this is the revenue sheet. This is our total anticipated revenues. Included in there are the transfers from capital reserve. That 20,000 is a wash with anticipated capital expense. The reserve capacity, 7513, is the amount that's in the stabilization fund that will be applied towards the John Fitch Highway?
Yes.
Capital expense. That is what we have. That's the capacity fee is what is charged at a connection for new connections. So the total 1,083,804 is all revenues.
If I can make a recommendation to you guys, if you can look at that and let's knock out any questions and comfort levels you have on this.
Well, let's go to the expenditures first. If we go to the expenditures first and then come back to whether or not the revenues are addressing them appropriately, I think that would probably be a better way to go. From my perspective.
Okay.
Not that I can see next, but okay.
All right. The FinCom should have received also the spreadsheets of the Excel sheets that go behind these numbers. So if you have questions, it should be on the Excel sheet that you should have received. I'm not sure what you would like. The biggest chunk of our expenses is that basically 600,000 that goes towards Leominster Fitchburg for either usage, connection, or capital expense.
Now, let's stop right there. If you look at that Fitchburg Leominster usage, that is counting the increases as part of the IMA of the 4% and the 8%. That's correct, Bob, right?
Yes.
So we're capturing those numbers. But here, and Mr. Passios, if you could pay attention, if that number from Leominster goes up to $250,000, that's where it's going to get hit. So you're going to see that number go from 595 to 795, like that. So I think that might be and Terry, that's a good idea to go this way. that's what we're concerned about. And as you can see, if that happens, then the subtotal goes down to $1,243,000. So yeah, we are concerned on the sewer commission about this.
Okay, so then basically, at this point, this would be your total anticipated expenditures and indirect costs for FY21, and you're anticipating bringing in $1,083,000 in revenue. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so you're basically planning for an additional $70,000 above the expenditures to try to cushion that $200,000 amount?
Yes. On the next page, Terry, is it also shows the overage. There's the 67.9. We also have a deficit with betterment revenues over debt service of 193. So the retained earnings that were, the deficit is the 125,650. Included with that $67,000 figure, we are budgeting a $30,000 transfer to capital reserve for major expenditures, repairs, replacements, and then the OPEB basic installment. So we are budgeting those transfers in as well. We have continued to try to transfer monies over to capital reserve for 4 years to.
Okay, and then just to go back to the betterment discussion, I think usually there's been a graph presented that's shown even though it's a deficit of betterment revenue versus debt service, that a lot of the betterments were booked, and you've been seeing that number go down over time. So that's not unusual there to be a deficit. Right. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Barb.
Nope. I if there's any questions, I'd be happy to.
I'm sorry. We're on questions.
If I could just ask something, for the deficit, the betterment to debt service deficit, in the 2020 budget, it was 181,000. And for this year, am I seeing it right that it's 193,000? So it went up, the deficit increased?
And I wasn't looking at it. I would imagine so. We do have the issue as houses sell and the betterments are paid off. Our retained earnings have increased because we have accepted more than we anticipated, but that the debt service remains the same. So it could very well. I don't have them right side by side.
Okay.
Does anybody need the screen back up before I see all your faces? Do we need the screen? Anyone questions with the budget? Harry, can you put that back up, the last page?
I see Peter raising his hand, not virtually.
I think we need a red flag to wave.
I have a question, but it doesn't require it doesn't require.
Somehow I left the meeting. I'm trying to come back.
Okay. All right.
Oh, we see.
What I was trying to do was share this page.
Yeah, there you go.
And I don't know if Barbara, the reason I was trying to share this one was I wasn't sure if you had the side by side in here.
For the debt service, yes, at the very bottom, just the prior year, I think at the very bottom should have it. Keep going all the way.
It's a very big.
It is. Okay. I'm sorry.
It's the very bottom thing. Keep going.
Keep going. Oh, geez.
Oh, right there.
Right there. So see what I think the reason why I was asking the question, because it looks like 2019, it was 188, then it went down in 2020, and now it's gone back up to higher than it was in 2019. So that's what I was looking at.
Right. The debt service stays fairly constant. The betterment revenue can change based on payoffs, basically. and that can affect the deficit. But if it is a deficit, then that betterment revenue has been added to our retained earnings as well.
So are there any projections about the future payoffs?
I looked at one recently. It hasn't been updated for a year. What did I do with it? Sorry. I have in 2022 revenues 609 and debt service 717. So you've got a much less deficit. I think this is the biggest year. The debt service is the 814 or 804 figure.
Yep.
This again is from 2018. It went down to 717. I need to do a new study and check it out. But this was going to be the biggest year.
Okay. And I just wanted to illustrate that the fees, that the Leominster usage fee in the budget is budgeted for an increase of 29.3. And then the Fitchburg is increasing by 18.2, just so everybody knows that. It's within this sheet that Terry has projected right now. There's a lot of detail in there.
And that would be the 8% and the 4%. Is that right, Barb?
Right. If you went down to the gold, I wish I could control it. I'm like, down in the gold is all the figures that 595 is made up of, right there. The capital, the sewer usage, and the connection fees.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, my hands are gone.
I even raised my hand virtually.
I don't. Well, I'm trying now. It get lost because of the way the screens change. So I totally apologize.
You gotta keep clicking on the participant button for some reason.
Oh.
Yeah, to bring that.
Oh, there it is. All right, Peter. I see your virtual hand.
Thank you. I want to get back to the issue of the $200,000 projected increase from Leominster. Is that $200,000? Is that a pie in the sky number? Is that a number that Leominster has come to us with? Is that being driven by any kind of data at this point? And then the second part of the question is the mechanism and the timing of that, were to occur, whatever the number is, that may precipitate yet another rate increase possibly. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. The $200,000 number is not a pie in the sky. It was based on data over the last few years as far as what it would be. We know what the flows are going forward. We know what the billable expenses are. And I know former commissioners have worked on it, and their estimates could be anywhere between 200. It could be more. It's just that I want to make sure what it is, and I really want to make sure that we have ditch effort and try to contain this and try to. So we're putting $200,000 in there now, but really, Peter, it could be more.
And is that a negotiable kind of issue, or is he just going to flip the switch on that?
Leominster, it's in the IMA. It's been in there since 1999. Leominster's always done the billing with our billable water going over. They decided to look at it because they know they've been helping us and we're saving money, I should say, so they can enforce it at any time. Now, is there negotiable? Everything's negotiable, but I think what we got to do, and we sent Carl Luck over to talk to Richard and talk to the sewer commissioner, and he said he wanted to go with it. And then he talked to Barb, and now we're waiting to see what they're going to do. So they can drop the trigger, but we do want to have a meeting with them. Like I said, they're not our enemy. They're our partners, and they're business partners. But I also know that, especially now, at least before then, that, every town wants to make sure they get every dollar. And I don't blame them. I mean, Fitchburg and Leominster, I should say Fitchburg is going through millions of dollars in separating that water sewer treatment from the sewer to drains. And if you go through Fitchburg, you can see where the streets are being. but that's costing the town millions and millions of dollars. And thank God that when Lunenburg decided to put sewer in, it was done the right way. It's a separate line and high pressure and gravity, but at least we're not in that boat. But yeah, we're working on it to see what we can do to decrease it and find a happy medium. And that's what we need a little bit more time for. But we do have to have an increase. And I think the numbers don't lie, as you can see here. So, Peter, I appreciate your concern, but, you know, we are trying to get that under control.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, does that conclude the sewer budget presentation?
Yes, I didn't know if there's any other questions or anything.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I guess next up is Dr. Burnham for the school budget.
Thank you. Hi, Dr. Burnham.
Thank you, Dave.
Bye-bye. Thank you, guys.
So I'll just start by saying thanks for having us back. We were one of the last groups to present to you before the shutdown happened, just days after we were with you. Mr. Beardmore actually foreshadowed a bit the things to come that evening. I don't think any of us realized it would be as monumental as it is turning out to be. All right, so that said, last time I was with you, I told you that we are really driven by the school department mission and vision, and that really drives our budget priorities, which were to develop a budget that meets student needs and aligns with the strategy for continuous improvement objectives. So COVID-19 is impacting our budget, but COVID-19 does not eliminate or change the state mandates that we have to operate under, our shifting demographic, whether that be socioeconomic, ethnic, racial. It does not change the fact that our enrollment has been increasing in the last handful of years. It also does not change or eliminate our projected staffing needs, and it does not eliminate our student need. As a matter of fact, we believe that a result of the closure and remote learning, we anticipate that there will be academic gaps, learning gaps to fill, that we will have to, first and foremost, upon return to school in the fall, be addressing the social and emotional needs of our students, as well as behavioral needs. And you knew from the last presentation that those are significant needs for our kiddos, particularly at the primary level. COVID-19, however, does create many new challenges for us. The challenges under remote learning come around ensuring that our students are fed, that our students can equitably access remote learning, meaning that they have internet access or they have computers. Also ensuring that we have training for our teachers in instructional technology, that we are monitoring the quality teaching in a virtual classroom, and the delivery of special ed services, as well as behavioral health supports for students, families, and staff. Under the opening of schools with physical distancing, and we're still awaiting some guidance from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education through the Commissioner of Education around what a reopening of schools might look like with physical distancing. But we anticipate, among other challenges, having challenges with transporting students with physical distancing, serving lunch, classrooms with desks 6 feet apart, passing between classes, recess. Will we need to have masks, temperature checks for staff and students? And one of the lingering impacts, and this is, one of the biggest challenges, I think, with any reopen, whether that be, small businesses, restaurants, et cetera, will staff and students feel that it is safe to return? So the last time I was before you, I presented a budget to you on March 12th. That budget had been presented the evening before and endorsed by the school committee. And it was the budget that we originally presented to the school committee back in January. Part of that 3.24% increase budget included a new assistant principal, a full-time psychologist, a special ed teacher at the Turkey Hill Elementary, and all of those positions really were to be able to provide the appropriate supports for our students with needs. Additionally, we had the building leadership stipends, and all of the expense lines for each school were as the principals had requested. So the budget I brought before the school committee last evening as a recommended budget, now as a result of the economic impact due to COVID-19, it was approved reluctantly. That would be a 1.58% increase. We would still have the special education teacher, a Wilson Orton Gillingham, which is a specialized reading programs for students, typically with learning disabilities. We also had to increase the unemployment as part of this budget. And we had in the previous budget a salary reserve of $322,000 because we are currently negotiating contracts with the teachers, the custodians, the paraprofessionals, and the food service staff in the district. As you can see in this budget proposal here, that salary reserve is only $30,000. We are hoping to be able to address some of the lesser budgetary impact type requests that some of our unions have put on the table for discussion. I want to just back up to that slide one second. The town manager had asked that we submit a level service budget. She did indicate that that really should not include any new positions. But the positions that are included here in this budget, the special ed teacher and this reading teacher, these positions allow us continuity of service. Without these positions, in order to get these positions, we would likely be talking about cutting other staff. And honestly, as I sit here before you this evening, I don't know what staff we would cut in order to secure these positions here. Again, they're in here because we felt very strongly that these were necessary positions for level service for next year. And here's an overview summary of the costs as they lay out in this budget that's before you this evening. So what are we losing as compared to that 3.24% budget proposal? We won't have an assistant principal at the K-5 level. We won't have an additional school psychologist at the K-5 level. Clearly, we don't have a salary reserve to negotiate contracts with our employees. And I will say that it's important to note that the loss of the assistant principal position and the school psychologist position, these positions, without them, we will definitely negatively impact our capacity to optimally meet the social emotional needs of our students. And we know that these needs will be increasing as a result of the closure due to COVID-19. So ultimately, what's the impact of a 1.58 budget? We really aren't going to be able to address our budget priorities. Our capacity to optimally meet the needs of all students is diminished, and progress on the execution of the strategy for continuous improvement will be significantly slowed. There are still some budgetary unknowns, even aside of all of the unknowns relative to Chapter 70, a final budget from the state. We would typically not learn of our circuit breaker or state and federal grant allocations until mid-summertime. Additionally, we still have to work to hopefully settle a contract, even if that is just a 1-year contract with the groups that we've already been in conversations with. And again, I'll just, it's important not to lose sight of the fact that there are some future unknowns. We know that we have no reliable tool that we can use to reliably predict enrollment increases or decreases. We also know that, our demographic here in town has been shifting over the last several years, and we know that our student needs are definitely shifting over these last few years. We're not sure if those trends will continue and what that means for us in terms of being able to meet student need. We also know that pending a decision around a project involving the Passios building, if a project at some point moves forward, we will likely have to exit the building for the renovation to occur. And that would mean that we would have to relocate offices, programs, and storage. And again, a future unknown. I know that the current fiscal situation, this is definitely not the right time to be talking about the future of the Turkey Hill Elementary School, but that is something that we will have to address in the next handful of years in terms of making a decision. As I've said before in these presentations, as the town continues to see growth and demographic changes, level service budgets are not going to allow the district to continue to perform at or above the state in terms of student achievement and growth. We need to invest in the operational budget of the schools to ensure that we can continue to meet our students' needs.
Peter, I see your hand.
Thank you. I have two questions and a number of comments. I'll ask the questions first.
We need to have Mr. Cassidy unmuted for this conversation, do you think?
Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. I discovered last night, by the way, everybody, that Mr. Cassidy is a fellow Springsteen fan. So way up in my book over the last 24 hours.
Thank you.
With respect to the two new positions, just for purposes of clarification, it was my understanding from last night's school committee meeting that one of those positions was effectively being serviced by an employee who unfortunately passed away this past year and was not replaced. Is that a correct understanding?
So in the prior years, the services, the reading instruction in that specially designed instructional model of either Wilson or Orton Gillingham has been provided in the district by paraprofessionals. The paraprofessional who was providing the support was trained in the program. So it's not that somebody that didn't have training wasn't providing that instruction. And the paraprofessional who was providing the instruction actually had been at one time a certified teacher. Truthfully, specially designed instruction should be delivered by a certified teacher or by a paraprofessional under the supervision and direction of a teacher. So with the unfortunate and untimely passing of one of our paraprofessionals who was serving this function in late February with the passing, we started to take a look at and talk about the model. And we likely would have brought forward at the budget hearing that was scheduled for the school committee on March 18th, a recommendation that we, instead of filling this position again with a paraprofessional, make the appropriate shift and hire a teacher. So as we add this teaching position, we are eliminating the paraprofessional position. So with the elimination of that para position, it sort of offsets to some degree the salary of bringing on a teacher to serve that role.
Okay. Thank you. Second question, the SPED role. Is that position being driven by measurable demand for increased services, either by enrollment in SPED in that building or something else? And what I'm trying to get at is we've argued for a year about the definition of level services, but it strikes me that this is kind of a level services kind of thing. If you're dividing more kids by the same number of teachers, you don't have level services.
So it was in the fall a year ago that we came to the school committee and requested to post for a special education teacher position and a paraprofessional position for the primary school. And those two positions were to support a new program that we call our transitions program. And this program provides supports to students with the social, emotional, behavioral needs. It's the equivalent of our Achieve classrooms. So at the middle school and high school level, you have a program, the Achieve room, for students with cognitive needs. And we also have another one to service students with the social, emotional, behavioral needs. So those programs existed at the 6 through 12 level. So more than a year ago now, we created that same model at the primary school because we were seeing so many behavioral needs that were difficult to support because we didn't have the right staffing in order to support those needs. We know that having this additional support, we are seeing some success for our students, learning some skills to manage their emotions, having strategies, including having opportunity to take a break and regroup for themselves. Sometimes that means that a paraprofessional or a teacher is walking through a strategy with these young students till they can, manage to employ this strategy independently. We know that these students are leaving the primary school and transitioning up to third grade at Turkey Hill Elementary. The numbers of students that had been receiving the support through the program at the primary, so last year's second graders, now this year's third graders, we thought that the numbers were manageable. But as the year went on, more students start to display challenges. And once upon a time, our guidance counselor at Turkey Hill was enough to manage the supports for a small number of students. That's not the case anymore. We didn't have the flexibility in the budget this year to add a teacher position to support those students at Turkey Hill. we did hire an additional paraprofessional, and the teacher who oversees the Achieve classroom for our cognitive students agreed to oversee this other program with this additional para support. There are children who can't avail themselves of this support, who would greatly benefit from this support because we don't have the appropriate staffing to meet all of the needs. So we are really and truly servicing only those children with the highest level of need, which is, it's not optimal for anybody. It impacts their ability to learn, and ultimately it affects their peers' ability to learn because it's often disruptive. So we feel that truly this position does fill a level service for these students, because we need to establish this program so that they can continue with this support through 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, because they will have this support again when they get to the 6th grade. Right now, there's a gap that we need to close and provide the service for the students.
So suffice to say, you are not necessarily adequately addressing, but you are triaging
Yes.
a measurable trend.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the really thorough answer. So I just have a couple of comments, and I want to raise a concern that I raised last night. First of all, I think the administration and the school committee has done excellent work throughout this process, and I know that there were no good decisions, easy decisions to be made. The meeting, last night's school committee meeting, was somber, to say the least. And you know, as a parent, I'm concerned. I'm really concerned about not being able to address all of the issues that you have raised to us over the course of now multiple meetings over the course of the last year. But I appreciate your diligence and cooperation. This budget does not address a couple of things that I think at some point need to be addressed. First is the salary issue. And I don't want you to really comment on this, other than I personally, as a citizen, parent, and member of the Finance Committee, am very hopeful that the LEA in particular is operating. I know they are operating in a spirit of tremendous cooperation and extraordinary hard work during a time that is exceptionally challenging for everybody, but views this as a problem that's going to last, at least financially, through at least a fiscal year, if not longer, and will continue to work with your administration and the town so that we can continue to operate in as thorough a capacity as we can. The second issue, though, that we're not addressing here, best I can tell, are the costs associated with reopening. And I anticipate, and you outline some of the challenges that you have ahead, figuring out what September looks like under whatever conditions we find ourselves in September or late August. But in my mind, just based on the very limited overview that you gave, there are likely to be some substantial costs associated with that, that we have not provided for in any budget anywhere. And so, you know, we're operating obviously with a surplus. We're planning a budget that has a surplus, anticipating reduced Chapter 70 funds, obviously. So we don't expect to get the revenue that we're hoping to get from the state, and therefore there's a substantial surplus built into this budget. But my question is, and it's a question for you and the town manager, is there a way, number one, that we'll be able to fund these costs in July and August if we go into those months with an annual budget or even a month-to-month budget that hasn't addressed those needs? And then secondly, is there a way that we can formulate a mechanism through acceptable municipal finance practice to be able to do that and give you and the town manager the power and authority to allocate those funds as needed. And if that means extra busing routes or whatever it requires, that you can do what you need to do within reason to be able to effectively educate our kids in the fall.
So I will say that there are funds. I actually was on a webinar today. We anticipate that there are funds that will come from the federal government that can be used to reimburse for costs, some costs related to addressing COVID-19 needs. The busing challenge, that may truly be a significant hurdle for us to address. Not only are the bus companies likely not readily equipped to add many, many more buses to the current bus runs, and it would be costly for us to have more bus runs during the day. We may not have a choice on that. It depends on the guidance that comes from the state. So some of the things that they talk about are, a staggered attendance. Well, essentially that equates to a hybrid model where students would have some instruction on campus and some instruction in the model that they're currently employing. That way, we can reduce the number of students that show up to campus. We'll have to see what comes. I will say that it's hard to plan and budget for what we're not sure yet we will potentially be required to do. That said, worst case scenario, we need to be prepared to continue with remote learning. Now, whether that is we're continuing late August when school would reopen, or whether we're having to at some point during the year, if there's another wave with the virus, having to shut down schools and businesses again, hopefully for a shorter period of time than we're experiencing right now. But we need to be able to seamlessly flow in and out of education on campus and off campus. So we're looking right now at the ways in which we might be able to use grant funding. The federal government has relaxed some restrictions around usage of Title I funds. So we're looking at that, and we're looking to see if there are any savings that we can realize in this year's budget and come together with enough funding to purchase the devices. So at least we would have that much ready to go. Clearly, if we get some guidelines as to what a social distanced reopen looks like, we can start making plans. How many masks are we going to go through if we're required to wear masks? Do we need more thermometers? Do they need to be disposable thermometers? You've been, I'm sure, out to businesses where they've now installed plexiglass at the counters. Are we going to have to install plexiglass panels at our main office counters? We're not sure yet what that's going to look like. I know that the commissioner is working diligently on this with a team that includes folks from the Department of Public Health to get some advice as to what this might need to look like. I'm hopeful that we might hear some of this guidance in the next couple of weeks because the commissioner recognizes that we all need to start planning. And this is going to be a major shift to plan for. So I am hopeful that we will hear some additional guidance in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you very much.
So Peter, you're all set?
I think I'm not all set, but I'm as all set as I'm going to be tonight.
Right. Fair enough. All right, Dave, I see your hand.
Yeah. Fair to say that there are going to be a lot of unknowns and moving targets over the next months and possibly more than a year. So it's going to be very difficult to come up with anything that's really accurate. We're all trying to do our best guess on all of this, and we could be right on. We could be really far off, and I think that's why a number of us are pushing for being ultra conservative, not just conservative, but ultra conservative with our spending now and our budgeting for next year. I'd like to move into some questioning about something that happened after the public hearing yesterday, which will feed back into the 21 budget. And that was the lifting of the hiring freeze to advertise a number of positions that are apparently presently vacant and or will be for the 21 fiscal year. My understanding, 2 of them being retirements. And I do understand that 2 of the positions, Title I, and I jotted down reading, I'm not sure if that's correct, will be covered under grant money. But there was a conscious decision made by the administration to put these positions out to be advertised to try to fill them, rather than moving those funds towards your identified critical needs of an assistant principal and school psychologist. Could you comment on that?
One of the positions is a nursing position, and given what we are anticipating as our needs to be next year around these health issues, I really cannot be down a nurse. I don't know if nurses are going to have to take temperatures of staff and students daily as they enter the building. I feel very strongly that we certainly cannot go without a nurse, and I would prioritize the nurse position even above the position of assistant principal or school psychologist. When we put those as priority positions when we presented the budget originally, I didn't know I was going to be losing a nurse to retirement. So it absolutely is a critical position that we do need to fill. The other retirement is a teacher of our students who are English language learners. We have one other certified teacher in the district. We currently have 2. One will retire at the end of the year. We have these 2 teachers service all of these students who fall into this category from kindergarten, actually pre-K, up to grade 12. And there are guidelines that come from the state relative to the amount of time that these students are entitled to in terms of direct instruction with these teachers. And that really is truly dependent on how they test and what their ability is, what level of language acquisition they can demonstrate. But they have to demonstrate that by listening, speaking, and reading and writing. So again, when we put together the priorities for positions back in December and January, we were not aware that we were looking at this retirement. Again, I would say that right now I'm going to prioritize the need for that English language learner certified teacher to continue to meet the needs of our students. I think if we had had a different kind of retirement, I certainly would have evaluated that. And if I felt that there was another way that we could address that vacancy within our current staffing, then I could have maybe prioritized that we're actually looking to acquire another position like an assistant principal or a school psychologist. But we really felt that these two positions present a unique need for us right now that's very important.
I clearly don't disagree with you at this point. More keyed in, and I don't know what the dollar amounts. It may be a trivial amount of dollars, but those two positions, I understand that was a decision, and I agree with what you just said about those two positions. My question is the other 10 positions, all stipend, I believe, if I got the notes down right. I don't know what roughly that dollar amount is, but I question whether there were other higher priority places that money could have been funneled towards, and rather than filling those positions that you've lived without for I don't know how long, to tell you the truth at this point.
So last year we attempted to cut the stipend for the department head positions, as an example. As we were trying to maintain as many teaching positions last year, I can tell you that it was a challenge to reach an agreement with the LEA around those positions and the stipend attached to it, because those stipends are part of their contract. I really cannot not have department heads because they are the only curriculum leadership that we have in the district. I don't have a curriculum director. So we really do need to keep those positions. This year we did come up with another arrangement, but part of that was an understanding that that arrangement was going to be a 1-year arrangement to get through, the current fiscal year. The other positions are coaching positions. If we want to have a fall season, we have to be ready for a fall season. Until we hear that schools aren't going to be able to have sports because the sports are, involve physical contact. We may learn that we're not going to be able to have a fall sports season. At that point, even though those coaching positions had been posted and people had been selected, it's going to be made very clear that if there's no season, there's no stipend. I'm trying to recall, Mr. Cassidy, do you recall if there were other positions?
There was the summer school program.
Oh, that's right.
For our special needs students.
Right.
And the high need instruction that they need to transition through the summer into the fall. Once again, not knowing what the summer looks like as far as instruction goes. Just posting those positions, having people ready and waiting for the commissioner's guidance on what that would look like for districts in the Commonwealth. So it was just kind of lining up the operational piece on that. So if we're going to have summer school, we've got the applicants to appoint instead of waiting and then scrambling at some point. So
And
that was the other one.
And I just want to say that the extended school year program is something that's actually written into students' IEPs. Mm-hmm. So if the schools can be open, and we can reopen with some physical distancing protocols in place, we're going to have to open and provide those services because they are part of a student's IEP.
Thank you very much. I don't disagree with any of that. I just wanted to kind of run through the scenario as to the rationale behind it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the question.
I don't see any other hands, but I do want to ask a question if I could. On the salary reserve decrease, and I'm just not familiar with contract negotiations, so what are the implications of not being able to meet the contract needs without that reserve? How would that look?
So essentially, we were working with those 4 units on a new contract. All of these contracts are expiring this June 30th.
Mm-hmm.
So we were working to establish what the contracts would look like, typically for a 3-year period. Everybody is well aware of the crisis that we're facing. And I think it's pretty clear that there isn't going to be any monies for cost of living increases right now. We don't know what things will look like beyond, this upcoming fiscal year. Things might look a little better and they might look a little worse. We don't know. So we had been engaged with all of these groups. We did reach some agreements around language changes, no budgetary impact. We would like to honor the time spent where we've reached agreements on language and move forward with a 1-year plan that memorializes those agreements. There were some small requests that would have a minor budgetary impact. And I can tell you that, if you take a look at the salary schedule for paraprofessionals, the way it's structured currently, there are people that would be coming in and put on the salary scale lower than minimum wage currently. So clearly, there's a need to make an adjustment there. Additionally, we know that, to provide the services we provide to the students, our paraprofessionals are really a critical element of the work that we do and the ways in which we can support our students. I can tell you that for my tenure here, and I know that's very short, we have lost some folks who were really strong candidates that brought some great skill sets. But ultimately, the salary was way too low for them to even agree to make the move and take a cut from wherever they were coming. So we're losing potential employees who could really be a great asset to the district and a huge benefit to our students, because we can't compete in terms of the salary. It's just way too low. So, we might need to make some adjustments. That we're still not talking about a cost of living increase. But that's why we requested that we keep a small amount of money out of that original $322,000 just to address some of these things that really do need to be addressed.
Yeah, no, I'm more concerned that you're feeling good that you have enough of a reserve. That's where I was coming from. Because if the negotiations don't work in our favor, $30,000 doesn't seem like a lot to me. So how would that get pulled out of the rest of the budget? Is sort of my question. But I completely appreciate where you're coming from, and I'm just more concerned that the reserve that has remained you truly think is going to be adequate.
Yeah, and we requested to keep that small amount of money to address some of the other shifts. Clearly, that is clearly not enough money to provide any of our groups with a cost of living increase. And I think that everybody understands that given the current environment, they understand that there aren't funds for that right now.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much. I see Phyllis and Carl Luck.
A question,
Okay.
question and a comment. First, when you talk about the salaries that are too low, you're talking about paras specifically. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. And I just wanted to say that I really support adding the reading support teacher. There is no more critical position in a school than getting all of those little ones reading. So thank you very much for sticking to that hire. That's it.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Burnham and Michael. I think that's it. I don't see any other hands, so if there's no other questions. All right. The next thing on the agenda is for the administration unclassified budget. I don't know who's doing that presentation.
So, Michelle, if we can have...
Oh, it's you.
Yes.
Never mind. Sorry. All right. That's Heather reached out to me about this. All right. We're going to jump to the 2021 budget warrant article review. I understand Dave Blatt is with us to discuss the Green Communities Streetlights Initiative. Dave, I think you're muted.
Yes, I am, but I'm working on that. I'm not a Zoom man. That's all right. Give me a good old WebEx or Teams. So.
Michelle,
Yeah.
just before we get started on this, I just want to inform you and everybody else. I unfortunately, I work for a global company and I need to be on a call for work with my Asia Pac colleagues at the top of the hour. So I may need to exit this meeting in the middle of a presentation. So I just want to call that attention and apologize.
If that happens, let me just get this out real quick. Peter, if that happens, we're going to be talking about the Finance Committee warrant letter tonight. And if you can participate in that, please send me an email about what you would like included.
I will.
That's real.
And I will, I'm assuming this tape will be available as early as tomorrow, and I'll obviously take a look at whatever I miss.
Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you. Dave, I think you're ready to go.
Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. So I saw that Heather sent out a notice about basically with the presentation I have. Do you want me to go through the full presentation, or you just want me to kind of hit the highlights here?
I think if you hit the highlights, didn't we see the whole presentation, or am I confusing it with another meeting?
We did.
Okay. Yes. So if you want to just give us the highlights. Terry,
right.
are you looking to see if you can display something?
Oh, I know.
Okay. I don't know if it's showing.
No.
It's not.
Okay.
Oh, you got the participant screen share off.
Do I need to put something? No, I don't do anything.
No. The problem is that I'm trying to find that particular, I think I didn't download it. So it might be that it's not letting me share anything from the, there we go. Okay. No, see, it just keeps loading onto my, see if that'll share it.
Do you want to let me share screen and I can quickly do it, or?
I probably do, because all of a sudden,
Yeah. I've also got it up.
day.
I've got it up, Terry. I can share it as well.
Okay, let me send over the host. Okay, you got it.
Of course, now you really got to be done by 9 o'clock here.
I will put my usual speech on then. All right, grab slide 1, skip it. Slide 2, basically it's just saying, hey, we've done 350K so far. There's the projects, 355. You can go to the next one. Please, guys, stop me if you have questions and things like that. Here's where I'm going to get into the thing. we're going to talk about a couple of different things. Luminaire charge, it's a maintenance fee that we pay directly to Unitil. This is kind of like, think of it as a light rental or a light maintenance fee. Total electrical charge that I'm going to mention is the service and delivery charge. Yearly luminaire charge is a formula. Yearly electric charge is a formula. I'm going to talk about two things. One is the light, its whole set. I'm sorry, is, pole. Talk about the copay. That's when we talk about the LEDs. That's what we're going to talk about. That's what's going to be changed out. So the pole and bracket we buy from it's that whole.
Dave, I need to interrupt you for a second. I think you keep cutting out.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna because this is my connection. Is there a way of a dial-in or anything like that for me, or is it not on this?
Yeah, no, you can call in separately. You can use a telephone to call in.
All right. Let me try to see if I can get that on.
Dave,
right.
go to the arrow next to the microphone, and you can put your phone number in. It'll dial you.
Oh, perfect.
It says switch to phone audio is the
switch to phone audio. Gotcha. Okay. Phone number. Phone call. All right. So I'm gonna get this thing done. Any questions so far?
None here.
Great. Let's go for the next page. Okay, so this is what we look like today. Hold on. I'm just getting on now. Okay. Great. All right. Is that any better for everybody?
I think so.
Okay. Good deal. All right. So this is basically where we're at today. What you're looking at here is you're going to see that we have roughly 355 lights. When you add up the number of lights, the luminaire charge, as I mentioned, that's a rental fee per light bulb. Total electric is what we have, yearly electrical charge. And what I mainly want to point out here is you see that the luminaire charge is over double. So it's probably about 70% of the bill that we have each year is based on the rental of the lights, the rental and maintenance on the lights today. All right. So let's flip to the next one. And that's what I'm kind of summarized right here. So what I'm summarizing here is that the total charge, yearly charge, is the electric charge plus the maintenance charge being roughly 70% of the number. Okay, we can go for the next one. So we have option, that's if we did nothing. Option number one is Unitil has given us a figure for purchasing the lights. Okay, and this will be Unitil now will go and will change out all of the Cobra heads or the lights themselves and do that. What they do have still is the yearly luminaire charge, but based on the savings to go to LEDs, we go down from say 22,000 down to 9,000, 9,500 if you want to use a number there, and still you can see that it's about, it's roughly 70% will be of the bill, the $41,000 bill will be the luminaire charge right now. Okay. So this is the yearly charge, same thing, total savings for the year. This is just to have Unitil do it is about 31,600 that we have over what we have today. Okay, if you want to go to the next slide. So how do we get there? Unitil has given us a bill, a cost of $46,700 to change over. If I compute out the yearly savings of 31,600, that's roughly 18 months on ROI. All right, we can go to the next one.
So Dave, that 46,000,
yeah,
that's money coming. We have to pay that. That's basically
that is correct.
Unbudgeted money.
Right? That is correct. That is our charge. Yes.
Right. Okay.
But it would be 18 months to recoup it, and then you would have that savings of $33,000 a year. So this is option 3. This is if we bought the lights outright from Unitil, we used a green community grant to pay for the lights, and then just went on and then just performed the maintenance ourselves. So the idea here is that the maintenance, the way it's done, is the same as today. Today, if a light is out, somebody must call the police, the DPW, or town hall and say the light is out. And then, one of the officers of the town has to call up Unitil and say, by the way, there's a light out, we need it replaced. So if a townsperson calls up Unitil directly, they do nothing. The only people they will listen to is folks from the town. So I went and I talked to other towns who are now owning their lights and hiring people, as well as companies. The company that's doing it for Fitchburg today. What he told me is that for every time he's called to come out, it's $300 for a call. It's $100 each light. So if there's 4 or 5, it's only going to be $300 plus $300. $100 for each. Base towns maintenance. $5,000 a year. He says for the first year you might have approach that, but basically LEDs last for up to 10 years. So you will have for about from year 2 to 10 a much more savings than that. So here's the yearly electric charge. If I add that to the to that 5,000, you can see the total cost is $14,400. And that's going to be roughly a $58,000 savings from what we're doing today. Next slide, please. So how do we get there? In order to buy the lights from Unitil, they're telling us it's $90,793.21. That's to purchase everything. That's not just to replace the $6,000. Now to buy those poles and bracket and wiring, they want an additional $44,000 for that. I will tell you that cost, every time we ask Unitil, that cost has gone up for us. I've asked them to give me a 20-year amortization or just show me what lights they've replaced, how old the poles are, what our infrastructure looks like today. They haven't been able to furnish that as of this conversation, still haven't furnished it to us. So we use a green community grant to pay for the we'd have to pay $90,000. We can use the green community grant to upgrade because that is only good once you own the lights. The grant will allow you to upgrade the lights. Yearly savings is $58,000. Time to return on investment would be 19 months versus the 18 months for Unitil. Next slide, please. So if I can compare the two options, provide significant savings in electrical charges over 30, that's the same. The electrical charge is going to be the same. The maintenance is handled the same as today. The call only can come from the DPW or town manager's office. Big differences with the maintenance. Basically, it's about $26,500 a year less in maintenance for us to own the lights versus still continuing to pay Unitil for the maintenance of our lights. So the big drawback that we have is that if we own the infrastructure, we're requiring sending out a RFP or for maintenance contract out to bid every 3 years. And if you go for the next slide. So yearly cost savings, year 1, we're in the negative for both. By year 2, you can by year 2, we're both in the positive. You can see over 15 years, the savings for owning is, approaching $1.2 million over what we do today. And the difference between owning the lights and still paying Unitil is roughly $800,000 over 15 years. And I have one more slide. And basically, this is the process. We, bring it to town, solicit RFQ to get the cost estimate for conversion. Once the authorization happens, we can purchase the lights. We can still option a third party for maintenance, even with the lights we have today. Apply for the grant, contract a third party to convert to LEDs, and contract a third party to maintain the lights. So even if we even if we took the lights we have today and got rid of the maintenance contract and just even hired a third party for that, there'd still be that $40,000, roughly a $30,000 savings just in the interim period. But if it was a yearly interim before we converted. So I did this quickly. I'm not sure if I wanted to leave time for questions for everybody more than anything else.
I see Terry Birchfield has her hand up.
Yeah. Hi, Dave. Thanks a lot for the presentation. The question that I have is around the maintenance issues and most specifically, would the town then be on the hook for the poles and the clearing of trees? Or is the tree clearance, does that have to do with the delivery of the electricity?
So the tree clearance has to do with the delivery of electricity. That's part of their contract to deliver the electricity. The poles themselves are not even owned by Unitil. The poles are actually AT&T.
So AT&T.
But they're maintained by Unitil.
Okay, so then we would then have to maintain the poles.
No, we don't. It's still we only would pay if, like, say a pole was knocked down, we would have to pay for the removal of a light and the reinstallation once the pole was put back up. Okay. But we only have to pay for we have to pay for what we use the pole for. That's about it.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Dave?
Yeah, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong. To Terry's question, in your comments earlier, you were talking about buying the infrastructure, which included the pole and the light fixture. The pole you were talking about was the pipe that comes out from the pole to the light fixture up on the pole, not the physical wooden poles.
That is correct.
Okay.
So if an example is, just like I mentioned, it's Unitil who will put the poles in. Actually, not Unitil who owns the wooden poles that we do. That's why if you go down Reservoir Road, at the new poles aren't even finished and the old ones removed because not everybody is done with what they have to do with them right now.
I do have one more question, if I may, Michelle.
Sure.
Just wondering, Dave, I'm a little concerned about the wording of the article itself, and I know I'm assuming that you did not develop the wording, but I remember your presentation at the Board of Selectmen's meeting. The feeling was that, well, in general, that it seemed like the purchase outright seemed to be a no-brainer. Of course, that was before, given our present situation. But my take from that meeting was that the article would be worded in such a way that all three options could be considered on town meeting floor. And I'm not so sure that the wording I'm reading covers that.
Okay.
Or two options, I should say.
So I don't have the word of the article. It was not me who developed the article, and I don't have that wording. But I thought the decision by the board was to bring forth an article and let the town, providing the options and let the town figure out how much pain they wanted to take on.
Right. Through the chair to Heather, do you feel that the wording that to convert, basically my memory, I don't have it in front of me, but I think all it says is to convert the streetlights, and that's all it says.
I believe it does, but this will go through legal review as well before these are finalized.
Okay, thank you. That's just something I caught in one of my reviews of the articles. Thank you.
Oh, Jay?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to purchase them and own them and convert them to LED, but I just wanted clarification on the third-party maintenance, that $300 call and the $100 light. Is that just to do to repair the light, or is that if he has to replace the light, is that an additional cost if he uses has to
So it's what they've said they would do is they basically looked at, they would have a they would try to have us have as many lights as, can you hear me at all or not?
Yeah.
Am I
You're
coming
good and
through?
clear.
Okay. Okay, great. I just switched to a headset, that's why. So basically, what they've told me is that what they prefer is that they have a extra light or two on hand. What they would do is they would look to save time to just change out the light, bring it back to their shop, and then determine whether it was a bulb or the light itself. So the idea would be is that the call is to basically for them to get in there, get out of there, and that's it. So it's mainly to roll a truck and change the head on it.
If I could add a little bit to that. Dave, you also were saying in the past that $300 charge is basically what they would charge if they went out for one light. But if we could wait a little bit and wait for 2 or maybe 3 lights to need service and roll the crew or truck once for 3 lights, then it would be $300 for the first light, but $100 for each additional light. So instead of $900 for the 3 lights, it would be $500 for the 3 lights.
That is correct. That is very correct. Yes.
Heather, I see your hand.
I had one other.
Go ahead, Jay. You want to finish? Yeah.
I had one other question. For I don't know, Dave or the town manager. Once we own the lights, in the event of a situation like the ice storm, where a majority of them may be wiped out, do we have to have additional insurance for that, or would that be an out-of-pocket cost?
I'm assuming that we would have to notify our insurance company and add that to our asset list. And that would probably be, that would be a conversation I'd have to have with the insurance company about what the coverage would look like.
That would be nice to know what that additional cost might be.
A good question.
You can get coverage for anything. It's just how much you want to pay for it.
Okay. Thank you.
So actually, Jay, the thing there they're thinking about though is the lights themselves, or it was caused by Unitil. If it's a problem with the wiring to the pole or wiring to the light, that was the problem. It's Unitil's issue, not our issue. So the company would come out and diagnose that for us. But if it's a major issue, and it was Unitil, they would be responsible the electricity to the light.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Heather, I think you can go now.
Okay, thanks. I've said this before. I think Dave and the other Green Community members have done a great job, and all the work they've done to get to this point. I know Dave specifically has spent a lot of time on the presentations that he's done and the research as well. So I want to acknowledge that. As we all know, the situation we're in now is very different than in March, the last time Dave presented to the selectmen. And the funding decisions that we've made right now are deferring a lot of costs to the fall to see when we're in a better situation. One thing that does concern me about the option to purchase these outright is the possibility of losing the grant funding through the Department of Energy Resources, which would be the funding mechanism to purchase, to convert the streetlights in that situation. So that is a concern to me. The budget that I presented doesn't have this as to be currently funded. The available sources would be free cash or stabilization that it would have to come out of.
Okay.
Can I say something on that regarding that, Heather? Heather, thank you, first of all. It's my pleasure to do the work for the town. As you know, I probably volunteer for more than I should, but that's okay. I like that part. But my feeling is that even if I like the idea of bringing it to town meeting, because there is another option then, And the other option is to basically, I don't know, well, actually, I'd have to explore this, but even telling Unitil that we'll take over the maintenance for the present lights. And that saving, that, as you saw, the luminaire charge is the biggest charge we have. So what I would do is at that point is I would actually start, it would be the process of trying to buy the, thinking still to buy the lights outright, but we could always do the option of changing a light if it goes to LEDs as we go along to reduce it. It's about $250 a light to just change what we have today to an LED on it. So if you look at that, what we pay for one light bulb today for a year is the same as what if we did it ourselves.
Can I ask a quick follow-up to that? Do you know how many lights we change a year?
They did not give me that number, but I don't know. Like I said, that was the reason for you, especially for you guys. I wanted to get an idea of how old the infrastructure is and what they've changed. I still to this day don't know why we're not depreciating. We're increasing in value our lights each year for some reason. And to me, that means they've changed out quite a few, but they've been unwilling to furnish that information to us.
And would that conversion be considered an upgrade for the grant, to use the grant? And maybe I just don't understand how the grant works.
No, so the grant is only available if the town owns the lights.
Okay.
So it would not be available to. I don't know that, and I'd have to. We can. Well, I don't know if they would actually. Let me take it back, because I don't know if they would let us do the maintenance on the lights in the present way it's set up. That's the whole thing. And a feeling is we'd have to own the lights, and that would be option 2 without converting. If I look at it that way.
Yeah. And for option 2, I think you said for option 3, buying outright, that they keep changing the quote on you. It keeps going up.
Yes.
Is that happening in the option 2, the light purchase with the Unitil install, or are they staying consistent with that quote?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think that was fairly consistent. It went up slightly, but not as significantly as the other quote, which is unusual in itself. Yeah. I'm not sure why that went up as well. But let me check. Let me try to see if I have that quickly in my notes to tell me. Yeah.
Could I interject for a second? Dave, do you remember a conversation that roughly every 5 years they replace all the fixtures?
Yes, I do remember that. Yes, that's what. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That helps a lot.
Yep.
But still, I mean, if they're doing it every 5 years, I don't see why it should be going up that much, because we should be retiring some.
Mm-hmm. I see. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to make one more comment. And the point to replacing them piecemeal, your savings curve is much shallower, and it takes you longer to recoup your investment if you do it piecemeal versus doing it all together. Just a general comment. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, definitely agreed. But I think, when looking at the budget as a whole and how to prioritize spending, that's sort of the nature of the questions I'm asking. And that's not to say that it's not a worthwhile thing to do in the long run. It certainly is, but it's trying to weigh what the priority is right now. And I think it's great that we can look forward to the special town meeting in the fall, should this have to wait until then. So that was just sort of the nature of my comments. Okay, I see Phyllis and Carl Luck.
So
yes, I have a couple questions. One, Heather, I would appreciate it if you could know for next Tuesday's BOS meeting what the insurance charge would be. I thought that was a great question that Jay had. What would we pay for additional insurance if we owned the fixtures, whatever? And also, what we'd save if we just took over the maintenance, it sounds like that would be a big savings, and we could sort of try out maintaining it without Unitil's help. The third thing that I have mentioned before is looking at the street lights. Do we need all of the street lights we currently have? That would be one way to save money, just by eliminating some of the street lights. So those are three things that I think we need to look at right away. Thank you.
Dave, did I hear you quote that doing third-party maintenance would be a savings of $30,000?
That is correct. Over what Unitil would charge us.
So I think that answers one of your questions, Phyllis.
But that's still, you still incur the cost. You have to purchase the infrastructure before you can do that.
Okay. All right. I don't see any more hands. So with that,
I'm sorry, Michelle.
Oh, sure.
This is Dave. I'm not raising my hand too well, but I wanted to just address the one question you had, and the cost to replace with 40,600 to 41,000. So it went up like $500. Meanwhile, if you look at historically, the price of the LED streetlights, that has gone down 15% in that same time period. So I don't know whether we have more lights or what from the first time to the second time, but the price went up $500 for them to do it.
Okay. All right. If that's it on the streetlights, thank you so much for your time, Dave. Oh, do I see Dave Passios trying to ask a question? Oh, I'm sorry, I missed your hand.
Not a problem. Just had one last question for Dave, if he has the number in his head. Do you remember the approximate increase overall from 6 months or a year ago to the numbers you have now? I have a number of $30,000 in my head as the additional cost because we've waited an extra 6 months or a year, but that may be an incorrect number.
So the numbers that based on it's rough. I would say it's at least $30,000. So that would have been, if I look at that, it's what is the luminaire charge been for the year, as well as the increase in electric charges. But, so that's roughly $30,000 over the past year that we could have saved that we are losing. But the big thing we're seeing is that also the cost of doing this is going up each year, each time we do this.
And that's driven by the fact that Unitil is coming back with a bigger number for the value of the infrastructure every time we ask them, correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
Thank you.
Dave, could you just clarify for me, would we be able to take over maintenance if we did not purchase the infrastructure?
So I have to find that out to clarify that. However, I'm going to probably say no, because the fact of the matter is, if they own it, they're not going to let us do the maintenance. That's how they're making that. That's really how they're making their money, is by doing the maintenance right now.
Thank you.
And by the way, the last part of this is, if you look at it, is that we receive some very inexpensive electricity due to the green fields, due to the solar farms that we participate with. The least expensive electricity we have is all going towards the streetlights, and I would much rather see that go towards town buildings, the schools, and things of that sort, than the maintenance of those streetlights. If you think about it, $40,000 a year of what we're savings in electricity is now going to just maintain streetlights. More than that.
All right. Thank you, Dave.
All right.
Hey, Michelle, I did it again.
All right, your hand is up again, Dave Passios.
Yeah, only because if this were to be pushed off to November, I want to seriously look at alternative funding sources, depending on what what our finances look like in November. And I'm not saying it should be pushed off to November, but I'm just trying to run this scenario through my mind a little bit. Dave, can you give me the round number that would need to be plugged into the article to fund outright purchase? Now, assuming it's going to go up a little because we're going to wait a number of months again. But let's go. Let me step back. What's the round number that we would need to invest if we approve this at June town meeting? I have a reason for asking the question, just to make sure I have the right number.
Sure. So to buy the lights from Unitil, it would be figure 91,000, 90,793. To have them do it would be to have them do it, and to convert is roughly 47,000, 46,703. And I'm sorry, let me go one more step, and that's the maintenance charge today is 50,000. Is the maintenance charge today? So
okay, now the conversion, have we kicked around, and I think we have, the possibility of hiring out the conversion versus them doing the conversion?
Yes. So if we hire out the conversion, we can do it with the competitive grant. And the folks who we work with have both expressed that the state would be very, would be very excited about funding such a grant.
Okay, that tells me what I need to know. I'd just like to make a comment that based on numbers that I've been aware of for quite a while, and yes, our tax base will change a little bit, 6 months from now or year to year, but $100,000 increase in non-exempt expenditure, exempt expenditure would result in 6 cents per thousand increase on the tax rate. So, and again, we wouldn't be able to do it for annual town meeting because of the way the warrant article is written, but we could very easily do it for November town meeting as a one-time. And I use the wrong terminology all of the time, and everybody's going to shudder when I say a one-time override, but it would be 6 cents per thousand in one fiscal year, and that conversion or the purchase of the infrastructure would be paid for.
Is that a capital exclusion? Is that what that is, Terry? I
Yes.
swear we've talked about this. I think it's a capital exclusion.
It's a capital exclusion.
Okay.
Right, and I think it would be appropriate for this. It could be appropriate for this type of a purchase.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any more questions on the streetlights? All right. Thank you very much, Dave Blatt.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Good guys. Thanks for having me. Enjoy the evening. If you
Thank
can.
you.
Okay. I just need to report out that I have an issue. That I think the problem with screen sharing is that I don't have a PDF reader on my, oh, wait a minute, maybe I can share. Okay, I think it was just the way that I had stuff organized.
Perfect.
All right. So I will, I thought I was going to have to turn over to somebody else sharing the screen because I couldn't get it.
Well, I think you can go back to sharing because it's Heather's turn for administration and classified.
Okay, I will bring that back up. Sorry.
Great. Thank you. So last week we went over the debt service and capital plan, but I have more information that was requested regarding the debt service schedule tonight. So I want to move to the next slide, please. So the administration budgets include the selectman, the town manager, the town accountant, treasurer collector, assessors, the technology department, town clerk, and land use. So all these budgets reflect contractual increases and level funded with the exceptions that I highlight below. The town manager's budget is level funded. The town accountant's budget had a very slight increase in GASB 45 costs. The treasurer collector's budget had an increase of about $7,000 in lockbox costs. The assessor's budget had an increase of $3,000 in contracted services and $800 in MAP costs. The technology budget had an additional $18,000 in software costs that we may be able to spend out of this fiscal year's budget. And the town clerk budget, as you may remember in my preliminary budget recommendation, it included additional hours for the assistant town clerk, but this is being deferred at this time. And this budget recommendation now includes an additional $10,000 for new voting booths that may be able to be funded with end of year fiscal 20 surplus funds. It includes an increase in salary costs for election workers, registration and census workers, approximately $4,600, to address their below state minimum wages, and an increase in hours needed for election workers due to early voting. It also includes, the town clerk's budget includes other costs totaling approximately $3,600, which include increase in police detail costs, costs of printing for elections, postage, vendor costs for census, and an increase in street listing costs. The land use budget is level funded. In regards to the unclassified budget, our liability and workers' comp renewal premiums came in at slightly lower for property insurance and slightly higher for workers' comp. And the liability insurance decreased by $19,013, and the workers' comp increased by $9,831 for an overall decrease of $9,181. The police and fire injured on duty insurance is level funded. Our health insurance renewal is a 0.66% increase for active employees, which was another phenomenal year. Last year we saw a decrease, which I've never seen, and this year is a very minimal increase. 37% of our health insurance budget is for active town employees. 63% is for retiree health insurance for both town and school. The active portion is approximately $900,000 out of the $2.4 million. School retirees account for about $1.076 million, which is 73% of the retiree insurance, and town retirees account for $406,000, which is approximately 27% of the retiree insurance. Our retiree renewal is on a calendar year basis, and this budget reflects a 5% increase for MedX to Managed Blue and Medicare. As you may remember, our Public Employee Committee agreement went into effect in fiscal 19 and included plan design changes that reduced our current and retiree health insurance costs and reduced our OPEB liability. The MRPC assessment increased by $88, and all other accounts under unclassified, including historical, band concerts, reserve funds, town reports, and physicals, are all level funded. This first slide is the slide that you saw last week with the debt schedule, and it included all our current debt as well as the Saliba property and ladder truck debt. If you go to the next slide, this includes, we asked our financial advisor to provide what the estimated debt payments for the pavement management and the middle school, high school project that a bond will be issued in May. And that's the new revised schedule. Well, with those estimates, so these are just estimates that are plugged in. So we will receive our actual amounts in May, and the total bond issuance for this bond is $1,730,000. So that is also reflected. I provided updated revenue expense sheet and adjustment sheet to plug in the estimated amount, so we can look at that after. And with that, are there any questions?
Oh, I don't see any hands yet.
Okay. Do you want to move on to the revenue expense sheet, and I can describe that, or the the adjustments sheet?
We'll try.
Okay.
Heather, just so you're aware, I've tried to print the adjustment sheet out 2 weeks in a row, and the whole left side of it gets cut off, and there's a 3-inch margin to the right. I don't know if there's any way. Everything else printed properly except for that one.
Yeah. Is it printing like that, Dave?
No, the whole, everything beyond, let's see, I've got a number of 30, the 4366 is visible. Actually, it cuts off from the end of, if you look at the Thursday, April 30th, 2020, both weeks it's cut off right at the end of April to the left. All of that is missing when I print it. And I've tried adjusting my printer, and it doesn't seem to do anything. I mean, it displays properly on the screen, but it doesn't print. For some reason, it's shifted to the left by 3 inches or more.
I don't know. I
don't know if that's a document format or if that's a printer format issue.
I mean, this is a PDF of it, so whatever's on this screen should be able to print. I can see see how it cuts off at the first sentence. So that's based on how the PDF was formatted.
Right. Yep.
But the rest of it should be able to be printed.
Okay. I'll play around with it later. Thank you.
So since last week, or actually since Tuesday's meeting, we discussed the adjusted cherry sheet charges. So that added $14,661 to the surplus amount. The estimated principal and interest for the pavement management and middle school, high school project would be $147,770. And this is reflected on both the revenue side and the expenditure side, since this is exempt debt. So there's no net effect on the bottom line of the current available excess levy capacity. And if you go to the other sheet, the revenue expense sheet, I just highlighted the cells that reflect these estimated debt payments.
You're killing me here.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a comment. I'm just trying to put a number together. I'll be ready in just a second. Okay, if I may, on the adjustments and recommendations, there's no need to bring it back up again. I'd just like to make a general comment from my perspective. At the MMA meeting, I attended one of many workshops, and one of the ones that really struck me, and I got a lot of information out of, was headed by a town administrator from the town escapes me, so I won't even bother trying to guess what it was. But anyway, his question to the group at the opening was, what is the responsibility of the finance committee? And the room went silent for a good 30 seconds before I piped up and I said, review and recommend. And he said, exactly. And that is our charge, is to review finances of the town and recommend based on our interpretations of what's presented to us. Based on that, I spent some time going over the revised capital article and where it presently sits at $264,800, and identified 4 more items that I see as one to be put off to next year, the other 3 to be postponed, to look at them again in November. And I'll just go through this, and I know a lot of people are not going to agree with me, but some will. The changes in the capital budget that I propose reduce it by an additional $210,300. The first being number 1 on the list, the ADA ramp and sidewalk for Town Hall. I don't see any reason why that can't be deferred. The Turkey Hill Middle School asbestos abatement program, I think that should be put off for a full year. That's not an essential project in my eyes. It's not going to be completely clean anyway. And this has been an ongoing project that I don't see any reason why it can't wait a year. Now, these are my personal thoughts. These are not the board's thoughts. The next is number 6, the ALS equipment phase 1. Put that off till November and make sure we can afford to spend that money. And lastly, design of the AC for classrooms at the primary school. Defer that to November also, for a total of $210,300 additional reduction in capital, which would total, the capital with my numbers would total $454,500. One additional thing that I would defer until November would be the OPEB deposit of $110,000. Put those 2 together, and it would be an offset of $320,300, and give us a budget surplus of $1,302,000. I believe my numbers are right. I was trying to crunch that last number. Again, these are my ultra-conservative thoughts as to additional cuts we could make now and put back in place in November, with the exception of the asbestos. And the reason I don't see the asbestos, if it's deferred to November, being done is that that needs to be done during the summer when the school's not in session. So it would need to be pushed off to the next year anyway, after November. So those are my thoughts. Some people will agree with me, some people won't. But I wanted to get that out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Heather, I see your hand.
I just wanted to respond more about that it would add to a surplus, because it wouldn't add to the bottom line. The funding sources for the capital plan and the OPEB article are from free cash. So by deferring those, we're just reducing the amount of free cash on the revenue side and reducing the amount of on the expenditure side for the capital and the OPEB. So the surplus would stay the same, just be using less of free cash, which would either, in my mind, should go towards the stabilization account, so it's there when we want to appropriate it. Because if not, it would fall back towards the bottom line of what's will be certified for next year's free cash.
If I may, that was one of the notes that I missed when I was running down my sheet here very quickly. And that was in my notes originally, and I meant to state that those dollars be moved into the capital money into special purpose stabilization account, and the OPEB money into the regular stabilization account. We had that conversation before, that you don't want to leave that free cash out there on the table because it will roll. So if it's in those accounts, then it's we can pull it back from those accounts in November if we feel it's prudent to do so and appropriate it. Is that, I believe I have that correct.
Yeah, I can answer that, Michelle. We don't have an article for the special purpose stabilization fund on the warrant, so it would have to go into the regular stabilization fund. But you're right, Dave. We could take that out in the fall of the November meeting. It would be a 2/3 vote to take it out.
Yeah. The reason I mentioned the special purpose is I thought we put a deposit into that every year automatically by policy, but I may be wrong on that.
It's the regular stabilization that we put a deposit into every year. Yeah.
Okay, and what triggers the traditional deposits that we've done into special purpose? Just excess free cash?
Yeah, so that's the last couple of years we've done the special purpose stabilization fund because the amount of funding we've had available. But this year's budget, based on the expenses and revenues, we weren't gonna meet that threshold.
Oh, okay, that's fine. In effect, though, what it does is it leaves money unappropriated, but safe in the stabilization fund. And I've been told by a number of sources that any of these stabilization funds can be appropriated for just about anything. Even the special purpose stabilization fund, the way it was created and the way the article was written when it was created, leaves it open for appropriation for just about anything, even though it's not necessarily our policy to use it for anything.
That is.
Thank you.
Okay. Heather, did you have more in your presentation on the administration and classified budgets?
I do not. No, that's all I had.
Okay. Any other questions for Heather? Great, thank you very much. Although we may have already gotten this covered, Ed,
Michelle, I'm sorry, there's two raised hands that are showing up here.
Oh, I didn't see when I looked. I apologize. Okay, Phyllis and Carl Luck.
Oh, and Heather. So Heather, is your hand still up or should I take it down?
No, it just wasn't taken down. Yeah.
Okay. And then, all right, let me unmute. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Phyllis Luck, I would like to support Dave Pacios' position. I think that's the conservative and the safe approach. Put it in stabilization and take it back out in November if things are looking rosy. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Okay, if there's no other questions about that, I just want to, we want to circle back to the 2021 budget warrant articles. Is there any more discussion anybody wants on any of those articles? Any other questions? Or, next week's meeting will be the public hearing and we'll be voting on the warrant articles. So this is just an opportunity to bring anything up you want to bring up ahead of that.
Michelle, my only comment is that there are no numbers attached to quite a number of the financial ones. So unless we have those numbers for the public hearing, we're not going to be able to do a recommendation until town meeting.
Right. I don't have the warrant in front of me. Heather, are you aware of this on the warrant?
So which ones specifically are you looking for, Dave?
Probably 1 through 13.
I haven't seen an updated one that might have any numbers attached to it that.
Do we just have the original draft? I apologize, Dave. We haven't seen anything since the original draft, right?
Correct. I haven't anyway.
Right. But we've talked about, or what's been presented in the budget worksheets as far as the amount for stabilization, which we're currently having that discussion about possibly changing that amount because of OPEB would increase that amount by that amount. The sewer budget you heard tonight, and as well as their article on transferring money into the capital reserve stabilization account, their OPEB account, so those amounts are known. The solid waste disposal program, that number hasn't changed from last year. It's 302,000. The water department, water enterprise fund, that amount hasn't changed from last year. That's 25,000. The amounts for the cable are in their articles, but I have to double check with cable to make sure those are accurate. And
Heather, I guess, is it going to be possible to have a clean draft for next week's public hearing?
it won't be finalized unless the selectmen vote next Tuesday on which articles they will be removing, if any.
I guess I probably more specifically to the budget one and all of the stabilization referrals and things like that.
So it sounds like the only one that might that's probably going to be up in the air right into town meeting would be the streetlight article. And
is the streetlight article, is that going on, or has the board voted to put that on?
The board has not voted to remove any articles at this time, except for the right of first refusal articles that were at the end.
Okay, thank you.
But am I correct? It will have to be a number attached to the streetlight article when it's on town meeting floor.
It's not printed in the actual warrant, but the motion itself would have to have the amount. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Do you know if they're on the streetlight? Is it the original draft language? Is it going to be more specifically that we're going to purchase, or?
That's what I'll go over with town council if that wording is sufficient.
Okay.
I just don't want to get it on town meeting floor and then find out that it's outside the scope of the article. That's my concern.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And I don't know if you saw this part of the selectmen's meeting on Tuesday with Rebecca Lantry. She has decided in the historical commission to keep that article on. The selectmen still have to vote on that as well, whether they agree with keeping that article on the warrant. It'd say instead of going for the 3%, it would probably be 1% or 1.5%.
But is she going to be available next week?
You can invite her. Yes.
Well, I mean, basically for the public hearing part, and because I'll have probably just two questions, but and I just want to, maybe if I just put this up here, I can ask you to let me know if I'm thinking correctly here. I'm trying to share the screen, but it won't let me. I've got it. This is it. I just can't belong to the finance committee anymore. It's too difficult. Okay. So basically, if I understand this correctly, if the assessed value of a house is $300,000, they're going to take $100,000 off. So they'd apply the tax rate, which is $1,812 for every $1,000, to the $200,000, or the amount of taxes that would be paid on $200,000. So that would create a tax rate of $36.24. So 1.5% of that would be $54.36. Am I reading that correctly?
I think that's accurate.
All right, and then basically so that in this different scenario, so basically if my house is valued at $300,000 and it's based on the tax rate, my tax bill is actually $5,436. So it's an additional $54 on top of my $54.36. So that's I'm assuming I'm correct with that. I guess and I don't know if she discussed it with the Board of Selectmen or not, but it was my understanding that the source of funding could be from two places. One would be by doing it this way, with taking the $100,000 off the assessed value and attaching it to that rate, or doing it based on the total assessed value. So it could be $81.54 if we didn't take off that $100,000, but then it could be weighed against income. So if somebody didn't make up to 80% of whatever the basically, if off of the average income, then they could be exempt. Did they discuss that with you folks or no?
There are a number of exemptions that can be applied to it, and that does include low income in your housing.
But the way that they're looking to put it in, does it speak to that at all? Does it set that up in the warrant article, or does it just set up forming the CPA and working the details out later?
That would be in the actual motion. So what was provided originally, I think the finance received a copy of that.
Yes. I was young then.
Yeah. And the way it was worded when it was received, which they're amending the 3%, like I said, to something lower. But the other exemptions that were in the wording were property owned and occupied as a domicile by any person who qualifies for low-income housing or low or moderate-income housing in the town of Lunenburg, as defined by Section 2 of said Act. 100,000 of the value of each taxable parcel of residential real property, and 100,000 of the value of each taxable parcel of Class 3 commercial property and Class 4 industrial property, as defined in Section 2A of said Chapter 59. So they would.
Okay, so it's not either or. You could do a whole compilation.
Right.
Okay. All right. Then yeah, that feels better, knowing that there's potential exemption. That was the only question I had on any of the warrant articles. I'm sorry, I would have raised my hand, but I don't have a hand raised thing.
All right, if there are no other questions with that, then we can move to the town manager updates, if the town manager has any.
I have no further updates.
Great. All right. So I asked for this agenda item to discuss the Finance Committee warrant letter. It makes a lot more sense for us to discuss up front what we would like to have in the letter instead of me just coming up with a draft and sending it out blind. So if anyone has any thoughts about what they'd like to see in the letter, I was thinking of putting in things like the whole concept of deferring expenses to the fall, the school committee budget, the state reduced revenue, right? Like all of those thematic things. So along those lines, what are you hoping to have in there to sort of represent the Finance Committee?
I don't know if it's possible to have. Yeah, I mean, what's going to be hard is giving everything that's being deferred until November. I don't know, and I'm going to just be completely optimistic here, which is foolish, but and say that if the numbers work, I'm assuming that there is a plan for prioritizing how the money will be put back in, or if that's just going to be something that will be a decision made in the fall, and we don't need to comment on that at all in the letter. But I think it probably would be important to indicate that those decisions will potentially have to be made in the fall in terms of what in what order things will come back if we don't have to let the whole surplus sit.
Yep.
Like if that's just all gone.
Right. Right. And like when I talk about that, it's more of like I kind of see this letter as being a lot of broad strokes because we don't have a lot of specifics. I mean, there's some certain concrete things I can talk about, but I think one of the messages we need to send to the town is how in flux everything is right now, and just coming up with a way to make that clear about about the information we've been getting and how to look at the budget. We've talked about, being conservative, talking about the stabilization funds, calling out the fact that we're, pushing off the police and the fire added positions. They have a staffing goal. We're pushing those off to look at again in the fall. Talk about the capital plan. How at this point in time, we're not going below level funding. And of course, the slowdown with new growth, that's a fact. Our debt position is still, I think, an issue that needs to be articulated in the letter. What else? So those are just some other general things I have. I wasn't thinking about putting too many numbers into the letter. Just I guess where they're necessary. But like Dave, you've had a lot of thoughts on the budget, a lot of input into your review and suggest, right? So from that, like what types of things do you think we should be expressing in the letter?
Haven't had a lot of time to think about it, and I honestly haven't read finance committee letters in the past, so I need a little time to digest it. One of the comments I was going to make was that I don't think, and I could be wrong, Terry, you could tell me better. I'm concerned that the letter needs to be more than just what's happening right now. Isn't it usually the letter kind of a review of what the finance committee has done through the year, at least the highlights, or is it just the budget?
It's basically, it's pointed to the budget, it's pointed to trends, it's pointed to priorities, shifting priorities, why there's like increases in one place and not another. So it's really a discussion about like what went into developing the budget and what the financial outlook was that caused that, or what the demographic, so we decided, or the town decided that it was important to have paramedic level service, so that requires this. So that means that this position was added to support that goal. So it's basically, it's a little bit long term, it's a little bit short term, but it's mostly how did this budget come to be, and what were the changes in it, and so it can be very specific. It can be it pretty much falls to the same thing every year. It's basically just a discussion about this is how much was increased here, this is why, and what the factors behind it were.
Yeah,
and some of it's just a little bit of information about, like say for example, when we talk about retirement and we talk about the cost to the town for retirement, and we talk about, like say teachers' retirement is different, so you don't see the town contributing to teacher retirement. That's something that comes out at state level. So, different things like that, just informational.
Yeah, I had written a preliminary letter before this whole COVID came out, and I actually really liked it. I really liked the way it came out, and I'd like to circle back to it. But some of it, like I think some of the finer points, might just be too much right now. So I do need to circle back and sort of take some of it out. But like the way Terry described is what I was shooting at in terms of getting the letter put together.
And yeah, how about if you leave that in as a general description of where you started, and then COVID-19 came along, and we threw that all away, and here's where we are now.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
John, you had a lot of good feedback on the letter.
Well, first of all, the letter you wrote, Liz, can people hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Wonderful. How about that? The letter you wrote, Michelle, last year was just wonderful. I thought it was a great effort. And may I suggest that what would help me a lot, and perhaps other people, is if you could take the letter you sort of drafted for this year, perhaps even make it in an outline form and circulate that. That might be able to structure our thinking a little bit, and at least assist us in giving you some feedback. What's your timing on this?
Well, so the letter's due on the 14th. It would really be great if I could get everybody a draft for next week to get that preliminary draft done. So then when we have the vote, all I have to do is plug in the vote. And to be honest with you, I don't think there's going to be much nomenclature around the vote.
Yeah.
You know, because I think we have all of our ducks in a row now. I'm not going to predict what people are voting, but I don't think it's going to materially change the letter. It's just going to add a couple of statements to it.
Right.
I could be wrong, though. I don't know what's going to come up in the discussion. I could be totally off base on that, but.
Right.